You think you know what success looks like? You picture a garage, a spark of genius, $1 billion. But what if I told you the money is the least interesting part of this story? They didn't just get rich. They reprogrammed the world. They took the logic of the economy and replaced it with a new rule, that the infrastructure we use to talk, to shop, to date, and even to think should belong to a single man. In 1995, the world's richest man was influential, yes, but he was bound by physics, factories, oil, physical assets. The men who ruled the digital age are bound only by logic, by the code they themselves wrote. They don't sell things, they sell platforms, and therein lies the mystery. How did the quest for better code inadvertently lead to the greatest concentration of power and wealth humanity has ever seen? And why is the solution to this problem, which they themselves created, proving to be almost impossible? The answer lies in 3 miscalculations dating back to the dawn of the Internet. To understand digital power, we need to discard the image of the lucky entrepreneur. We're talking about systems architects. In the old economy, scarcity generated value, limited resources, physical goods. In the digital age, value is generated by the network. Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg understood a fundamental truth. The most valuable product isn't the software, but the platform that connects all the users. Bill Gates was the pioneer. He turned software into a logical monopoly. Whoever owned the operating system set the rules. The twist? The Microsoft antitrust case of the 90s didn't end monopolies. It taught a lesson to the next generation. The lesson was, don't dominate the hardware or the software, dominate the access and the attention. The digital rise was funded by a system that incentivized monopoly as the only survival strategy, venture capital. VCs don't want a good business. They want a business that completely dominates a market. This is called the network effect, where the value of a network, like Facebook or Google, grows exponentially with each new user. For a VC, the goal isn't to have 100 good companies, but one that swallows all the others. This is the setup for the catastrophe. The financial system was intentionally subsidizing the creation of monolithic structures instead of open markets. The first wave was about access. Jeff Bezos didn't start by selling books. He started by building a logistics and trust system that scaled without geographic limits. His secret? He was willing to lose money for years to annihilate the competition. Meanwhile, at Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin promised to organize the world's information. A noble mission. But the byproduct? They created the most powerful attention engine in history. They didn't just answer questions, they began to define which questions were important. The turning point here isn't the IPO. It's the realization that to get access, users were willing to give up their most valuable asset, their privacy. The second wave was the most dangerous, the attention economy. Mark Zuckerberg turned social networking from a pastime into a fundamental necessity. His genius was understanding that the fastest way to achieve dominance wasn't to build, but to buy. The acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp were the real breaking point. These weren't product purchases. They were purchases of future threats. Regulators, used to factories and oil pipelines, looked at a photo-sharing app and shrugged. It was the biggest regulatory failure of the 21st century. By allowing these acquisitions, the government allowed the monopoly on access, Bezos, and the monopoly on information, Google, to be matched by the monopoly on social connection, Zuckerberg. The third wave, led by Elon Musk, transcended the digital. He focused on physical infrastructure using digital logic. Electric cars? They are computers on wheels. Space exploration? It's a global satellite network. The consequence? If the first generation accumulated wealth and the second accumulated data, the third is accumulating control of the infrastructure that defines modern civilization. They don't just sell the hammer. They own the sawmill, the road, and the forest. The response to this power has been slow and frustrating. We get congressional hearings, fines, antitrust lawsuits. Why do they fail? Because the government is trying to apply rules from 1900 to a problem from 2025. Digital power isn't in a single product. It's in the interconnection. How do you break up Google without destroying the search that millions rely on? How do you regulate Facebook without infringing on free speech at a global scale? The system was built to be unbreakable. What we're seeing isn't new, but the speed and the scale are terrifying. In the late 19th century, the robber barons used efficiency to justify their monopolies. They said, "We're more efficient. This is good for the consumer." Today, Apple and Google control 99% of the mobile app market. They charge a toll fee of up to 30% on every transaction. That's not innovation, that's a digital toll booth. The wealth of these men is a byproduct of a deeper commodification, human attention. Studies show that maximum engagement on social platforms is achieved through polarization and sensationalist information. The algorithm that decides what you see doesn't aim for truth, but for the click. The most profitable business model in the world is inherently dependent on social division. The 5 richest men in the world together control more wealth than the GDP of entire nations. There is no historical precedent for such a concentration of capital and influence in the hands of a few individuals. The story of digital wealth isn't a story of brilliant individuals. It's a story of systems that were built to reward total dominance. To navigate this future, we need 3 clear takeaways. First, money is the symptom, power is the disease. The discussion shouldn't be about how much money they have, but about what they can do with the control they have over our communication, commerce, and data. The solution isn't just to tax wealth, but to regulate network power. Second, the citizen is not the customer. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. However, the real insight is that the customer isn't the citizen. The priority for these companies is the shareholder and the advertiser. We need digital rights that position us as the primary customers of the infrastructure we use. Third, the future is not yet written. Code is logic, but it's not destiny. History shows that great concentrations of power always generate a reaction. What you see on your screen is not an accident, it is an architecture. And the architects are in a race to turn code into law. The question that remains is, when you realize the platform you live on is actually a kingdom, will you continue to live by the king's rules, or will you demand a constitution? Change begins with informed curiosity. If you found this analysis insightful and want to understand the next regulatory battles in Silicon Valley, please leave a like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what is the real price we pay for digital convenience?